Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of After Hours in the STEM Center with Rance Bobo. This evening, we have a very special guest, one of Kenyatta's own alumni. We have Chris Rodriguez. Chris, welcome to our speaker series.
Thank you, Rance. Thanks for the invitation.
Excellent, excellent. So how are you doing today?
Great. Just got off a day of working remotely, and I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. We're glad to have you here as well. We're truly privileged to have you come back, talk to our students about what you're currently doing and your experiences as far as transfer, what's after Kenyatta and what's like in the workforce. So can you tell us a little bit about your educational journey?
Sure thing. So I'm born and raised from Redwood City. I started off going way back. Started off elementary in Garfield. So I'm sure a lot of our students know that about Garfield. Then I went to Summit Charter Prep for high school. And afterwards, I wasn't too satisfied with the schools that I got into, so I came to Kenyatta, where I met a lot of great professors like Dr. E. And from there on, from Kenyatta, I spent about two and a half to 3 years at Kenyatta, and from there I transferred to UC Davis. From Davis, I was studying mechanical engineering at the time. From there, I worked. I graduated. I worked for about a few months. I didn't like what I was working on, so I went back to school to Santa Clara. I got my master's in computer science and engineering, and that's a bit about my journey through education. I'm not sure if you wanted a little more details on any of the steps, but that's the overall overview of it.
Well, let me tell you, I have a whole lot of questions.
Let's hear it.
So you said, okay, so you got accepted into a 4-year out of high school?
Yes.
Several 4-year institutions out of high school. And you said you did not like where you got accepted and you decided to go to Kenyatta?
Well, yes. So the thing is that straight out of high school, I had kind of a different mentality. I mean, especially because at my high school, I feel like I was very pressured into like, it was a brand new high school, and they wanted to build this reputation as a high school that pushes students to get into like really prestigious universities, and like that's the kind of high school that I went to. And the schools that I got into, I wanted to get into like a different, like a UC or some different school, right? So that's kind of the reason I chose to go to Kenyatta.
Okay. So I mean, now I really have to ask. So did you get into any UCs when you applied?
Yes, I got into UC Merced, which was new at the time, so I was looking for something a little different.
Okay. Did you apply to any privates out of high school?
I did. My scopes were really high. I applied at Stanford, but the thing is that I only applied to a few schools. I didn't really like open my opportunities as much as I could, and that's the reason why I feel like I could have applied to more and probably gotten a bigger variety of options.
Okay. I mean, you know what? That's pretty rare, to hear someone who got into a 4-year institution or got into several 4-year institutions and decided to stay home and go to a local community college, and you chose Kenyatta. So share your experience at Kenyatta. What benefits, was there any special programs, internships, what type of services did you receive at Kenyatta that made it worthwhile?
Oh yeah, there's let's see, there's so many. Let's start by well, first of all, the Mesa Center was definitely, even back when I was there, it was the place where there was kind of a community where if you're even thinking about going into STEM, or there's already kind of a community built there and you build a lot of friendships there, and it's just fun to come and study together at STEM Center. So that's the first thing I can recall. But apart from that, there is also back then I received a couple scholarships from being around at the STEM Center. There was uh, I don't recall the specific names right now, but there's one that was, I think, the NSF scholarship. There's also there's the annual kind of scholarship general application. So those are two things. That's another thing that there's, especially at Kenyatta, there's like a lot of those opportunities going around, as well as overall just the cost of going to community college as compared to going to 4 years straight away. There's so many more opportunities for scholarships, and the cost is less usually. That is just a big kind of a help along the way. And another thing that I would say I really benefited from being at Kenyatta, which I cannot really tell because I didn't go to a 4 year for the first 2 years, but I really feel like the first 2 years of your college, you meet a lot of the friends that you're going to have for a long time. So being at Kenyatta, I've met many friends that I still keep in touch with today. And that's another great thing about having gone to Kenyatta.
Awesome, awesome, excellent. Um, so you mentioned that, the STEM Center provides, a plethora of services. And we know that internships are one of them. Did you ever take any advantage of the internships offered at Kenyatta?
Right. Yes. So back at the time, there was that, I believe it was called the NASA CPAR internship, which I did take advantage of. At the time, it was located or we attended the internship at San Francisco State, where we had direction from a grad student in San Francisco State, and it was a project that was kind of formulated by one of the professors at San Francisco State. That was fun. It was a good time, as well as got some interesting experience there.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And so did your experience with that internship help you in the future, such as, internships in your four-year institution, or help you prepare for the workforce? Um, did it have any other translation to what you're currently doing, or any past experiences?
Well, I think it was a good kind of introduction to working with others outside of class. It's a little bit different environment, and you kind of do get a feel for that if you haven't gotten a feel for that before in kind of a professional environment. As far as any connections to now, I feel like I've gone a different course since I was at Kenyatta. Now I'm computer science and engineering. So it's a bit different, but I did get a bit of that kind of interaction, because even with the people that you know right now, you know them as classmates. It's a much different story actually working and in a project where you have to deliver something together at the end. That's yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Also, to our viewers at home, you can send in your questions, and we will answer them as they come in. So, we highly encourage that. So at Kenyatta, you were a mechanical engineering major.
That's right.
And so from Kenyatta, you transferred to UC Davis.
Right.
Now, why Davis? What was that transition like? Um, yeah, what did they offer? What captured your attention for Davis?
Davis, right? So first of all, I got to visit Davis before actually, accepting their application. So that's one thing. I got to visit the campus, and I really enjoyed being at the campus. Besides that, Davis it had a really good mechanical engineering program that I looked into it, and it was also one of the top engineering schools in the country. So that's one of the reasons that I was attracted to Davis. But besides that, I also kind of I had lived in the Bay Area for pretty much my whole life, and I wanted to go somewhere like a bit distant, but not too far away from the Bay. So I think that was a good location. It's definitely a different identity from the Bay. Like it's close enough that it's only about a 2-hour drive from Redwood City, but you get a very kind of interesting mix because you're in a small college town that has a lot of kind of things going on for a small town, but it's in the middle of kind of an agricultural area. So I feel like it's a very nice environment. Um, as far as the other questions, I think you were asking what else does Davis offer?
Right, right. I mean, so you did mention that they're, one of the, they have a great engineering program. Um, you did mention, the environment was different than the Bay Area, because Bay Area, we move, we hustle and bustle out there in Davis. It's cows and crickets.
Yeah.
So, it is a little bit. The pace of life is definitely different. Um, so what was the transition like for you going from, because at Kenyatta we're semester, when you switched over, you went quarter. So, what was that experience like? And then what was the transition jumping from a community college classroom setting for you to that, four-year institution, setting at Davis?
Right. So as far as preparation, I feel like Kenyatta really prepares you for a 4-year college. So I did not feel as at a disadvantage moving into Davis. However, the pace it was more intense because, well, first of all, it's a smaller amount of time to complete coursework, and I feel like for the most difficult part, actually, no, well, I would say that there's plenty of challenging classes at the lower division, but coming into upper division, like the first few classes, there's a few that are pretty challenging. And coming into Davis, I did not have that kind of like kind of a Mensa center, kind of like a little community of students to that you can come to and just ask like, hey, like, have you seen this type of problem, or like have like get any help on that, right? So I felt like there was a lot of kind of just going on my own, having to actually like put a lot more time into studying. I put a lot more effort for the first year at Davis, and I did I did reach out to. In my experience, I reached out to different orgs that I was familiar with. For example, at Kenyatta, I did take up the role of ship co-president. But going into Davis, I felt like the chapter was operated a little differently than it did at Kenyatta. And it was kind of a different environment, so I didn't really find kind of a community there. So it was a bit challenging at first, but I felt like once after getting past the first quarter, maybe first and a half quarter, you get the rhythm of how like the assignments run and how everything is set in the semester system. Sorry, quarter system.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Um, so we have some questions from the viewers, and some of these questions are, um, they will be addressed later. We're just trying to move through his educational timeline. So after you finished at the four-year institution, did you go straight into the workforce, or did you go into a graduate degree? Because no, you did mention that you worked somewhere that you did not like.
Right.
So yeah, let's go into that. So was that based on the work that you were doing, or was it based on the environment of the company?
I would say it's more based on the environment of the company, but also the industry I was in. I wasn't. I mean, I feel like yeah, it had a lot to do with the environment at the company coming straight out of school. It wasn't exactly what I had expected. I felt like at that moment, I feel like I could have chosen a different industry within the field, but I felt like I wanted to get a better kind of get in a better position to find something where I was, you know, more find a job that was more enjoyable for me.
Okay, okay. Um, so you graduated as a mechanical engineer. You started working in industry as a mechanical engineer, and you just didn't dig it. Just didn't fit for you. Because I mean, I always when I was in college, I found mechanical engineering. I thought that was, that was like the middle ground because you got to work with your hands physically. You still had to do a little bit of programming. So, it just tied everything together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to graduate school to study computer science.
Mm-hmm.
So making that transition, um, were there remedial courses involved? I mean, did you have to take, a lot of introductory programming classes to make that computer science happen?
Right. So coming back to that, actually, here's another great thing about having gone to Kenyatta. I mean, maybe could have been in it a 4 year as well, but at Kenyatta I took a lot of classes that, well, as part of the transfer process, you get to choose what classes you're taking, right? And there's some kind of elective kind of classes that are kind of complementary to your engineering track, right? So as a mechanical engineer, I had the option of taking it was Java, um, and then object-oriented programming in C++. So I already like it's interesting because at that time of taking the classes, I didn't think that, like, oh yeah, this is like what I'm going to go to in the future. I love this like right now. That wasn't my mentality at the moment. But actually after after having gone through my 4 year and then having worked for a little bit, I kind of reviewed some of the stuff I had seen before, and a lot of the things, like, believe it or not, like some of the things that came up in those two classes, they were still like in my mind and I could recall them. So that really helped out a lot, from the taking those courses in Kenyatta. For some remedial classes, like there were some classes that, luckily, a lot of classes that I took in my lower division did like kind of substitute some of the ones that I needed, but there was about one or two classes I needed to take that at the grad school as remedial classes.
Right, right. And so your grad school, you went to Santa Clara University,
Yeah.
which is a private. So why did you choose Santa Clara?
Santa Clara. Well, at the moment, there was the applications that were open at the moment, so I applied both to San Jose and Santa Clara. And I know that they're both have strong computer science programs. So Santa Clara came in first, and I didn't hear back from San Jose. So that's the reason I went to Santa Clara.
Okay. Yeah, the San Jose State, their computer science program, everyone's trying to get in, to that program. So it's just like, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty, yeah, it's a very like impacted program at San Jose State.
Right.
And so what was your experience like going to a private compared to your experience at the UC?
Well, this one, I think it'd be a very biased response because, in my opinion, like the 4 year school that at least in my experience, the 4 year school that you go to is kind of like the school that you're like the school that's like in your heart. It's like you go to the school, like you came from Kenyatta and you're moving on to the 4 year, and I feel like I really enjoyed the 4 year um, kind of process. Like it's Davis is it's a much bigger school. There's a lot more students. There's a lot more organizations. There's a lot of more things going on. And I feel like my experience at Davis was I really enjoyed it as a as an undergrad. And then coming into Santa Clara, this is a grad student life, so it's a bit different. I feel like it's grad students are much more focused on getting through grad school, where undergrad is more like kind of getting your work done and also enjoying a little bit of the college life. In Davis, it was more like students that they came maybe from far away and they're all staying there. Where Santa Clara, you might have a lot more commuters, and it's a smaller school. And I felt like as a grad student, a lot of the activities happening there were more like geared towards undergrads. So it was just a different experience. At Santa Clara, I was a commuter, and I only spent the time that I needed in the classes there, maybe spent some time at the study hall, and I came back home. Where at Davis, I was much more of a kind of interactive with the environment that was happening there. So I think it's just a matter of the situation and like the stage that I was in.
Right, right. Because you did mention Santa Clara is small, so it could have that Kenyatta feeling to it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so, definitely. It's the study hall. Actually, the study hall reminds me a little bit of kind of the learning center at Kenyatta.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I know like, the different, the environment's very different. And so, each environment, serves a different purpose for each student.
Right.
So during your undergrad at Davis, internships, did you any interesting internships?
At Davis, I actually did not do any internships, which is something that I probably would have done differently if I go back. I think that would have been very helpful, especially coming back to the industry question. I think that if I would have gotten more experience in a specific kind of industry that I like really enjoyed it, and kind of gotten with that experience, I'm sure would help a lot with like job applications afterwards. That would have been a kind of a great help, but I did not take any at Davis. However, at Santa Clara, I did take some internships with relation to programming.
Okay, okay, okay. Awesome, awesome. So now let's talk about what you're currently doing.
Sure.
So you work at Kohl's, so as an everyday consumer, I see Kohl's as a department store,
Right.
and buy dress shirts, dress pants. Um, I can never, connect the engineering or computer science aspect to it. So can you speak to that? So, what are you doing for Kohl's right now as a software engineer, and the type of technology that you use, and are you on the front end or back end?
Of course. So coming on the first aspect of the question, so how do you relate Coles to engineering computer science, right? So Coles is, I would say it's a rather large organization. There's like offices, there's an office here in the Bay Area. There's a headquarters in Milwaukee. They have like a photo studio in New York. They have like a credit card office in Texas, so it's kind of a large organization. So it's in terms of technology and engineering, they decided to open a branch here in Milpitas, that is focused on originally it was focused on three aspects of Pulse. One is the mobile application, the other is the web store, and then the other branch is the big data and analytics branch. So the branch that I'm in is the web store, but as a trend that I've been noticing a lot in this industry is that, well, first of all, everybody's trying to like get their, kind of their online experience to be up to par with what is out there at the moment. And second, I think that these organizations are also trying to leverage using big data and analytics to see like, okay, how can we like make things more personal, like sending personalized kind of items to your emails, similar to what Amazon does, or seeing like what trends are happening, trying to predict which areas, like what type of merchandise is going to sell. Maybe like in the Bay Area, it's hot this weekend, so they're trying to target more like lighter clothes, whereas some area it might be warmer. So trying to use all this data to kind of better the business aspect of this retail, right? So coming back to what I do at Kohl's, working in the web store team. Originally, I started off at a project called K-Link, which is it's a platform that Kohl's uses to onboard merchandise as well as onboard new vendors onto Kohl's. By vendors, I mean companies like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. Traditionally, this was all done through email, so it was very old school, like a lot of exchanging of like spreadsheets and stuff. And as I came into Kohl's, this project was starting up. So I got to see a lot of the grounds up work. How are we going to use some of the existing work or we call services at Kohl's to get information to build this application, right? So slowly, as I started transitioning into, as this project was starting to mature, I went fully onto front end, which is kind of taking care of the visual aspect of the pages on K-Link, but also managing whatever data is coming from the servers and how to display it and how to interact with the user essentially once from K-Link. And that project has been live now for about a year and a half. But coming to more recent times now, in February we had a massive reorganization, and I went fully from front end to back end because the team just changed. And now I'm working on a similar project, but I'm working on the opposite side. Before I was on the front end, now I'm on the back end. And the project we're working on is similar to how Walmart. You might go to their website and you'll see they have some product for sale, right? But they say it's for sale, but by some other party, right? So Kohl's is working on something similar to that, and that's the project I'm working on right now on the back end. As far as technologies I've worked with, as a front-end engineer, I worked with JavaScript, HTML, CSS, jQuery, and back-end right now I'm working all in Java, just Java, plain Java.
Okay. So where is the industry? Because, right now, at, Kenyatta, some students are on the fence of going Java or going C++. Where is the industry with that? What is a common language or the most popular language that they're using?
Right. So I feel like this question you may ask like maybe I don't know 10 different people. You're gonna get 10 different responses. It really depends on what your industry is what you're focusing on, what you're doing. So I guess if you're yeah, it really depends. But I think that Java and C++ were both great for learning because that's all I knew when I started my grad school career, and I didn't do an undergrad in programming, right? So, but if you ask me, I've worked more with Java. Java, well, there's the technology I'm working with is called Spring Boot, and it works with Java. So this is kind of for making applications to launch servers, to launch servers, batch processes, like kind of backend stuff. Also, if you're interested in Android programming, that happens in Java. So I've had much more experience with Java than C++. But again, I think it's a very biased question because I've used Java more. But I think if you ask a lot of people, they would say they would either answer either JavaScript or Python because there's so many things happening with JavaScript and Python. JavaScript has like you can build a full stack application, meaning you can build the front end and the back end and not have to know any other language, and you can do it in JavaScript, right? And Python, I hear a lot of people talking about big data in Python, and that's it. But I don't think students should be discouraged to study either Java or C++ because I feel like once you get once you get the idea of how it works, how the syntax, how to build programs, you can transfer that knowledge to another language. You'll just have to kind of pick them up as you go, and I think that's my best advice. Kind of just pick up a language, understand it, and then once you understand it, you'll notice that you'll be able to transfer it to another language with not as much effort as you did to learn your first language. So
Right.
that's
It's like
yeah,
speaking Spanish. If you can speak Spanish, for the most part, you can pick up Portuguese or Italian.
yeah,
It has that
exactly.
that Latin base. It all
Yeah.
works together. So okay, yeah, I get it. I get it. Um, so you also mentioned something. You taught at Skyline College as well after
Yeah.
you got your master's. So explain that. How did that come into fruition? How did that happen?
Yeah. So well, we kind of a few of our people from our generation, some students, kind of had a little party for Dr. E's retirement. So Dr. E, he is a professor who was working at Kenyatta when I was there, and he's a very beloved professor. He taught a lot of engineering classes, and he always encouraged students to to tackle challenges, and we had a little retirement party for him. And at the retirement party, he approached me and said, "Hey, like you should consider teaching a semester or two at and any of the at the community colleges, and just try to give back to the community colleges." And that's kind of how that came to fruition.
So what was it like being the instructor?
It's very different because being a student, you're kind of just listening to lectures and trying to get as much as you can, from the lectures. And sometimes, you see some students kind of nodding off or occasionally, but being the teacher, it's like, okay, how can I build a lecture that's very captivating, keeps very easy to understand, and it's it's been more challenging than you think to kind of put everything together, and yeah, it's nice when you see that the students are understanding a concept and grasping it. It's a very different feeling. It's more like how can I inspire and kind of get the concepts down. But yeah, it's definitely a different experience.
Right. Um, so would you consider being an instructor again, like later in the future? And did you enjoy it?
Yes, I would definitely consider being an instructor in the future. Now I think that I want to focus more on progressing my career. So putting some time aside for other things I want to do as well. So, but I would definitely I would come back and be a teacher once I feel like I've gone as far as I want to go in the industry.
Okay. Okay. Um, so let's get back to you being in industry. So what was your biggest challenge that you faced when you entered the industry, with computer science or that virtual industry? What was one of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Um, so well, I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into Coles. So I had two internships while I was a grad student, and one of them was at Coles, for which it was like a 3 month internship where it was paid, and it was I learned a lot from it. So saying that that's starting my internship, I feel like the experience I got at school is it definitely helps with the internship, but I feel like there's a lot of things that I didn't know that I learned in the internship that eventually helped me once I got the job at Kohl's. So from the internship, I was extended an offer, and from that offer, I think there I I had some experience from the internship that really helped because I went into front end and I was able to understand a lot of how to accomplish a lot of these tasks more easily. But I guess another one of the other challenges of going into industry is kind of um, interacting in the professional environment. Like it's kind of how do you interact with like other coworkers in the sense of like in collaboration. Sometimes some coworkers won't be as collaborative, and how do you like tackle these problems, right? um, those were kind of the bigger challenges because at school I feel like everybody's trying to like complete a project and get a good grade on it, but sometimes and within the work environment you might be in different teams and you need something from another team, and their like kind of goals might not be aligned with yours. So how do you tackle that? That's kind of those are some of the bigger challenges I think I faced when I first got into industry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, I can understand that. It's just like your priorities are not their priorities, so why should they make it a priority for themselves? And so, yeah, that's where I guess the communication skills you know,
Yeah.
come into play. You know, how do you make it captivating? How do you make it important to them as well? So yeah, I can see that. So, we do have a question from the viewer. This is one of those complicated questions I think that you typically like to roll those questions in as we're speaking. But so this viewer is asking, do you think it's important to have a strong online portfolio showcasing different projects to apply for front-end roles, including internships?
I think that at this kind of where I see the industry right now, I think it's very helpful to have a portfolio. I actually don't have one, but I can see how it's very helpful, especially since I see that a lot of the industry is kind of gravitating towards a certain like kind of a framework, right? Like a programming framework. And if you're like trying to go to whichever industry you're going to, it's very useful to have a portfolio that's showcasing what you can do with that framework. Especially, I feel like a lot of like smaller companies or startups like really enjoy to see what you've done. Um, so yes, I think it's important. I don't have one, but I feel like if once I start looking for a different role, maybe in a different company, I'm definitely going to develop one. So yeah, I think it's very important.
Excellent. And then they also asked about, have you used any JavaScript frameworks like Regex or Views? I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it.
React, is
React.
it
These are Regex.
React?
React.
Or I think that maybe it's Redux.
Yeah, I have no clue. But such as programs such as,
Well, I'll talk about the frameworks that I have worked with. So I've worked in my internship. I worked with Angular. Angular. This was about 3 years ago, but I've noticed that more recently there's been a lot more kind of a trend towards React. So I'm working in my own side projects for that. So React definitely. At work, I've been working more with jQuery, which is a bit older, but I've noticed that kind of in the industry, this has been a trend because they built a lot of this stuff was built earlier, and they kind of just continued using it. Um, by a lot of this stuff, I mean a lot of the kind of web platforms for these e-commerce were built earlier, and they have just kept on using the same technologies. But they're a lot like in retail. They're starting to kind of get more actualized with what is out there. But yeah, I think React is very it's a very useful one to know.
Okay, excellent. And then we have another question pertaining to your academic journey. At all three institutions, Kenyatta, Davis, and Santa Clara, uh, what do you consider the most challenging, and was there an event during your academic journey at either Kenyatta, Davis, or Santa Clara that you consider the most challenging, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, so I feel like they're all challenging in different ways. Kenyatta, it's like so. I coming from high school, I feel like the challenge there was like you're getting a different workload than you're used to, especially like if you're taking a lot of engineering classes. And there was kind of the challenge there was kind of getting into the habit of putting more time into studying and really understanding the subjects, right? So for me, I felt like at Kenyatta, that was the biggest challenge, kind of getting through those classes that require the more studying, like kind of like the physics series, the calculus series, differentials. Especially for me, programming was really tough when I first started. So yeah, that was the biggest challenge coming into Kenyatta. Uh, Davis, I feel like again the transition to Davis is a little bit more tough because you don't have that kind of community that you've already built. So and you're also getting used to a different environment. So I feel like it's mostly that transition of getting used to the environment. I know some of my friends have gotten better used to it, like more quickly, better adapted or than others. So it really depends. But I felt like a lot of the course load at Kenyatta was kind of it did prepare me for taking on that 4 year. Um, and then for grad school, I feel like grad school was probably one of the easier ones for me. It's just that it was much more focused on a particular area, you know. Um, so but then grad school is more like you're more into the work that you're doing. You're not necessarily like, going to campus and doing. I mean, I guess you could, but I feel like it's just a different vibe overall.
Yeah, you only go there to focus on just one thing,
Yeah,
your science. There's nothing else to, you know, that's off cuff or off course that you gotta, turn the switch on, so to speak. It's just like, I'm just doing computer science.
yeah.
Yeah. So I get that. I can see that, how that can be a little bit easier because you're just focused on just one thing. So then, another question from one of our viewers is, how much of what you learned at Davis do you actually use in your job or in Santa Clara? Because you would slant at Santa Clara for the computer science, you were working in that computer science. So essentially, how much of what you learn in school you're actually using?
Um, I would say maybe 20% because I feel like that I did take a lot of coursework in kind of a few different areas, but what I really went into was like more like web development and the classes that focus more on web development. And not only that, I think some of the concepts are from I learned from other classes are still useful. Like I technically don't like work on those things, but it really helps you understand why something may not work the way that you may think it works, or like it give you an idea of how to make something work better, right? So like I took a class on distributed computing, which I don't directly work on distributed computing, but if you have an idea of how like computers interact with each other across networks, it'll help you understand why maybe like some servers that you're working on, like you may be like building a program, and that program is hosted on a server, and that's interacting with other computers. Like some of those concepts from that class like help me understand why some things break sometimes, even though I don't directly work with distributed computing. So I would say directly, like what I learned in grad school, probably 20%, but definitely like some of the ideas that I learned from other classes are good to know.
Okay. Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. So my question would be, what advice would you have for students who are currently at Kenyatta? Um, what would you, I mean, as far as taking advantage of some of the services, what to focus on, or how to prepare for transfer? Do you have any advice to that?
Um, yeah, so one, I would say, well, when I was at Kenyatta, I attended a lot of the kind of conferences that happened that were kind of presented at the Mesa Center. So that kind of did give, and these are events where they take you to like different 4-year colleges. This really gave me an idea of like what kind of environment I could see myself in,